I stood in the corner of the hotel ballroom, my champagne flute untouched on the high-top table beside me. The lighting here was dim, perfect for blending into the background while my sister Victoria commanded attention in the center of the room. Her laugh rang out above the classical music, that practiced sound she'd perfected over the years, bright enough to seem genuine, calculated enough to draw every eye in the room. This was Dad's retirement party. 40 years with Morrison and Associates, one of Boston's top architectural firms, and he'd insisted on making it a proper celebration. 200 guests filled the ballroom of the Fairmont Copley Plaza, everyone dressed in cocktail attire, servers gliding between clusters of people with trays of hors d'oeuvres. Victoria wore an emerald green dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her husband, Brad, stood beside her in a Tom Ford suit, one hand resting possessively on her waist while he nodded along to whatever story she was telling the partners from Dad's firm. I'd chosen a simple black dress. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would draw attention or questions I didn't feel like answering tonight. There you are, Maya. Mom materialized beside me, her smile tight. Why are you hiding in the corner? Come say hello to the Hendersons. They were asking about you. I'm fine here, Mom. She glanced at my champagne. You haven't even touched your drink. Are you feeling all right? Just tired. Long week. Her expression shifted to that particular blend of concern and disappointment she'd mastered. Still working those odd hours with your computer thing? My company, yes. Right. She patted my arm. Well, try to mingle. This is a family event. She drifted away before I could respond, pulled into the orbit of one of Dad's colleagues. I watched her go, that familiar weight settling in my chest. 5 years. I'd been running my company for 5 years, and they still called it my computer thing. Maya. Victoria's voice cut through the ambient noise. She was waving me over, that brilliant smile fixed in place. Come here. I want you to meet someone. I considered pretending I hadn't heard her, but several people were already looking in my direction. I picked up my champagne and made my way through the crowd, accepting brief greetings from family friends who'd known me since childhood. Victoria hooked her arm through mine the moment I was within reach. Everyone, this is my little sister, Maya. She's the creative one in the family. The way she said creative made it sound like a consolation prize. The circle of people smiled politely. I recognized 2 of them partners at the downtown law firm where Victoria worked. The others appeared to be their spouses. Maya, this is Thomas Chen and his wife, Jessica. Thomas just made senior partner at Dewey and Chen. We shook hands, exchanging pleasantries. And what do you do, Maya? Jessica asked, her diamond earrings catching the light. Before I could answer, Victoria jumped in. Oh, Maya runs this cute little internet business. She builds websites and apps, does all that technical stuff none of us understand. She laughed, squeezing my arm. She's practically a hermit, working from home in her pajamas all day. The group chuckled. Good-natured, I suppose. Like someone had just shared an amusing anecdote about their quirky relative. It's a bit more complex than that, I said quietly. Of course it is, Victoria agreed, her tone suggesting she was humoring me. Maya's very talented. She's always been good with computers, even as a kid. Remember, when you fixed Dad's laptop that one time? Thomas's attention had already shifted back to Victoria. So I heard you're up for junior partner this year. That must be exciting. And just like that, I was dismissed from the conversation. Victoria launched into details about her career trajectory, her voice animated and confident. I stood there for another minute, then quietly extracted myself from the circle. No one noticed. Back in my corner, I pulled out my phone. 3 messages from my CTO, David, all marked urgent. I opened the thread. David, board wants final numbers before Monday's announcement. David, PR team needs your approval on the press release. David, also, congratulations again. This is incredible. I typed back quickly. We'll handle it tonight. Thanks, D. Still glued to that phone, I see. I looked up to find my father standing there, a scotch in his hand. He looked distinguished in his navy suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. Retirement suited him or would, once he actually stopped working. Hey, Dad. Great party. Your mother outdid herself. He glanced around the room with satisfaction. though I told her it was too much. You deserve it. 40 years is a big deal. He smiled, then nodded at my phone. Work emergency? Just some things I need to review. On a Saturday night? He shook his head. That's the problem with being your own boss. No work-life balance. You should consider applying somewhere with structure. I could make some calls. The firm's always looking for IT people. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice neutral. I appreciate that, Dad. But I'm happy with what I'm doing. Are you, though? He took a sip of his scotch. Don't get me wrong, Maya. I admire your independence. But you're 29 years old. Shouldn't you be thinking about stability? Benefits? A 401k. I have all of those things. He looked skeptical. Through your business? Come on, sweetie. How sustainable can it really be? These tech startups, they come and go. I just don't want to see you struggling when you could have a secure position somewhere. Victoria and Brad appeared before I could formulate a response. Brad clapped Dad on the shoulder. There's the man of the hour. We need you for photos. Of course, of course. Dad turned back to me. Think about what I said, Maya. I'm only looking out for you. They swept him away toward the photographer's setup. I watched them pose, Dad in the center, Victoria and Brad on one side, Mom joining them on the other. The photographer called for me, but I was already moving deeper into the shadows, already forgotten. The next hour passed in a blur of similar interactions. Aunt Carol asked if I was still doing that freelance work. Uncle Jim wondered aloud when I'd get a real job. Cousin Rebecca, recently graduated from business school, offered to mentor me on career development. Each comment was delivered with a smile, with the best intentions. That was the thing, none of them thought they were being condescending. They genuinely believed they were being helpful, expressing concern for their poor, misguided relative who'd chosen such an unconventional path. I'd stopped trying to explain years ago. Stopped trying to tell them about the Series C funding, the Fortune 500 clients, the team of 47 employees across 3 continents. They heard tech company and saw a hobbyist with a laptop. They heard CEO and thought I'd given myself an inflated title to feel important about my internet thing. It was easier to let them think what they wanted. I'd learned that lesson early. The dinner portion of the evening began at 7. I found my assigned seat at one of the round tables near the back, not at the head table with my parents and Victoria, but close enough to still be considered family. I was seated between Dad's accountant and his wife, both of whom spent the meal discussing their recent cruise to Alaska. I pushed my salmon around my plate, checking my phone periodically. The news was supposed to break at 9 p.m. Eastern. The embargo lift had been carefully coordinated with our PR team, timed to hit major financial news outlets simultaneously on Sunday evening, just before the Asian markets opened. Tomorrow morning, the official announcement. Tomorrow afternoon, the press conference. Tuesday, the Nasdaq opening bell. But tonight, at 9 p.m., the first wave would hit. I glanced at my watch. 7:45. Across the room, Victoria was holding court at the head table, gesturing animatedly while everyone around her laughed. Dad sat at the center, looking pleased. Mom kept touching his arm affectionately, her eyes bright. They looked happy. Content. Proud of the life they'd built, the family they'd raised. I wondered how that would change in 75 minutes. The accountant's wife was asking me something. I tuned back in. I'm sorry, what was that? I was just asking what you do, dear. Harold mentioned you work with computers. Something like that, yes. Oh, how wonderful. My nephew is studying computer science at Northeastern. Do you know anything about those coding boot camps? He's thinking of doing one over the summer. I gave her some general advice, half of my attention on the conversation, the other half on the clock. 8:15. 8:30. Dessert was served, an elaborate tiramisu that I barely touched. The lights dimmed slightly as Dad took the microphone to give a speech. He thanked his colleagues, his clients, his family. He got choked up talking about Mom's support through the years, Victoria's achievements that made him proud. He mentioned me almost as an afterthought. And of course, my youngest daughter Maya, who's blazing her own trail in her own way. Polite applause. A few people glanced in my direction and smiled. I raised my glass slightly in acknowledgement. The speech concluded. The lights came back up. Coffee service began. 8:55. My phone buzzed. David again. You watching? At my dad's party. We'll check in a few. Might want to see this. CNN just posted early. My heart rate kicked up. I opened my browser, navigating to CNN's business section. There it was. Posted 3 minutes ago. Breaking. Tech startup ClearPath AI announces $8.5 billion valuation ahead of IPO. The article was brief, just the initial breaking news alert. But it was enough. The details would follow, the deep dives, the analysis. But this was the first domino. I closed my phone and stood, heading toward the bathroom. I needed a moment to breathe, to process. The bathroom was blessedly empty. I leaned against the marble counter, staring at my reflection in the ornate mirror. Same face. Same person I'd been an hour ago, but somehow everything felt different now that it was public. 5 years of 18-hour days. 5 years of pitching to investors who barely looked up from their phones. 5 years of maybe you should get a real job and when are you going to settle down, and that's cute, honey, but what's your backup plan? My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my board member, Sandra. Reuters picked it up. Wall Street Journal confirmed. This is happening. I splashed some cold water on my wrists, fixed my lipstick, and headed back to the ballroom. The energy had shifted in my absence. People had moved from their assigned tables, clustering in smaller groups. The bar was doing steady business. Dad was surrounded by well-wishers near the windows. I found my corner again, the dim lighting feeling like an old friend. That's when I heard it. Just announced, valued at over $8 billion. The voice was coming from the bar area. I turned to see one of Dad's partners staring at his phone, his wife leaning over his shoulder. That's insane, she was saying. Who builds an AI company that valuable in 5 years? Says here the founder is only 29. He scrolled on his phone. Maya Reeves. Stanford dropout. Started the company in 2020. My stomach dropped. Wait, his wife said, grabbing his phone. Maya Reeves. Isn't that? She turned, scanning the room. Her eyes landed on me. I watched the recognition dawn on her face. The confusion, the disbelief. She touched her husband's arm, pointing in my direction. He looked up from his phone, looked at me, looked back at his phone. The conversation spread like ripples in a pond. One couple told another. Someone pulled up the CNN article. More phones came out. I stood very still, my champagne glass forgotten on the table beside me. Victoria appeared in my peripheral vision, making a beeline toward me. Brad was right behind her, his phone in his hand. Maya. Her voice was sharp. Is this real? I met her eyes. Is what real? She held up her phone, showing me the Reuters headline. This. Some tech company called ClearPath AI. The CEO is named Maya Reeves. Yes. Yes what? Yes, that's my company. Her expression cycled through several emotions in rapid succession: confusion, disbelief, something that might have been anger. You're telling me you run a company worth $8 billion? The conversations around us had gone quiet. People were listening now, watching. I'm telling you I'm the founder and CEO of ClearPath AI, yes. We're going public on Tuesday. That's impossible. Victoria's voice rose slightly. You work from home. You build websites. I haven't built a website in 4 years. But you. She trailed off, looking lost. You never said anything. I tried to. Multiple times. Remember last Thanksgiving when I mentioned landing a major contract with Microsoft? You changed the subject to Brad's promotion. Or that dinner in March when I said I was hiring a new VP of engineering. Dad asked if I really needed that many employees for a small operation. Mom appeared, Dad right behind her. Both looked stunned. Maya, Mom said carefully, what's going on? Everyone's talking about some tech company. It's my company, Mom. ClearPath AI. We develop artificial intelligence systems for enterprise resource planning. We have 47 employees, offices in San Francisco, Austin, and Singapore, and we're about to go public with an $8.5 billion valuation. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad recovered first. 8 billion? That can't be right. I pulled out my phone, navigating to the CNN article, and handed it to him. He read it, his face going pale. Mom read over his shoulder, her hand flying to her mouth. Maya Elizabeth Reeves. Dad read aloud, age 29, founded ClearPath AI in 2020 with an initial investment of $50,000. The company now serves 73 Fortune 500 clients and is expected to price its IPO between $45 and $50 per share, giving it a valuation of approximately $8.5 billion. He looked up at me, and I couldn't read his expression. Your stake, he said quietly, it says here you own 62% of the company. The math hung in the air between us. 62% of 8.5 billion, just over 5 billion, I confirmed. On paper, anyway, there's a lockup period, so I can't actually sell for 6 months, and $5 billion. Victoria interrupted. Her voice sounded strangled. You're worth $5 billion and you never mentioned it? I tried to mention the company. You all made it very clear you weren't interested. More family members had gathered now, forming a loose circle around us. Aunt Carol, Uncle Jim, Cousin Rebecca, all staring. The website thing, Mom said faintly. We thought you were just, I don't know, doing small projects. Freelancing. I was. 5 years ago. Then I had an idea for an AI system that could optimize supply chain logistics. I pitched it to some angel investors, got funded, and started building. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked. His voice held something I couldn't quite identify. Hurt, maybe. Confusion. I did tell you, Dad. Remember when I said I'd raised $1 million in seed funding? You asked if that was really sustainable. When I mentioned hiring my first employees, you suggested I should think about getting a stable position instead. When I turned down your offer to ask around about IT jobs, you gave me a lecture about being realistic. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. You never explained what it actually was, Victoria said defensively. You just said vague things about AI and enterprise software. You never asked for details. Every time I tried to talk about it, you redirected the conversation, or made a joke about me being a hermit with my computer. Uncle Jim cleared his throat. Well, I think what everyone's trying to say is, congratulations, Maya. This is incredible news. There was a murmur of agreement from the assembled family members. Congratulations. Well done. We're so proud. I really looked at them. These people who'd spent years making me feel like my work was insignificant, like I was wasting my potential, like I needed their advice to get my life on track. Now they were proud. My phone started ringing. I glanced at the screen. David, probably with updates. More news outlets picking up the story. More details emerging. I need to take this, I said. Excuse me. I walked away without waiting for a response, heading out of the ballroom and into the quiet hallway beyond. I answered the call. David. What's happening? Bloomberg just posted a full profile. Forbes is running it as their lead story. The Wall Street Journal has a breakdown of the technology. Maya, this is everywhere. I could hear the excitement in his voice, the disbelief that we'd actually pulled this off. How's the team? Freaking out in the best way. Jenny's already fielding interview requests. We're going to need to expand the PR team after this. Let's talk tomorrow. I need to get through tonight first. You at the family thing? Yeah. How's that going? I laughed. The sound slightly hollow. They just found out. Oh man. Are they? Shocked. Confused. Suddenly very interested in what I do. Want me to send a car? You can bail. The offer was tempting, but I thought about what Sandra had said during our last board meeting. You don't owe anyone your story, Maya. But sometimes it's worth telling, just so they understand what they missed. No, I said. I'm going to stay. I'll call you in the morning. I hung up and stood there for a moment, gathering my thoughts. Through the doors, I could hear the party continuing, the murmur of conversation punctuated by occasional laughter. When I returned to the ballroom, I found my parents waiting near the entrance. They both looked shell-shocked. Maya, Mom started. We need to talk about this. Okay. Why didn't you tell us how big your company had gotten? I tried, Mom. You weren't listening. That's not fair, Dad interjected. We've always supported you. I turned to look at him fully. Have you, though? When I dropped out of Stanford to pursue this, You told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. When I maxed out my credit cards to fund the first prototype, you said I was being irresponsible. When I turned down job offers to focus on ClearPath, you said I was throwing away my future. We were worried about you, Mom said, her eyes glistening. You were so young, and tech startups fail all the time. I know the statistics, Mom. I knew the risks. But you never asked about the technology, never wanted to understand what we were building. You just assumed it was some silly internet hobby. Because you never explained it. Victoria had joined us, her face flushed. You were always so vague about everything. I wasn't vague. You weren't paying attention. There's a difference. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again. A server appeared with a tray of champagne. We each took a glass automatically, the familiar social choreography taking over. So what happens now? Dad asked quietly. Tuesday morning, we ring the opening bell at NASDAQ. We've got a full day of investor meetings scheduled. Wednesday, I'm doing a keynote at TechCrunch Disrupt. Thursday, I meant with us, he interrupted. With the family. I took a sip of champagne, considering. I don't know, Dad. What do you want to happen? We want to support you, Mom said quickly. We want to be part of this. Now you do. The words hung in the air, sharper than I'd intended. But I didn't take them back. Victoria was scrolling through her phone again. There are already profiles about you appearing. Forbes has you listed as one of the youngest self-made billionaires. The Wall Street Journal is calling ClearPath the most anticipated IPO of the year. She looked up at me, and for the first time that evening, I saw genuine emotion in her eyes. Not jealousy, exactly. Something more complicated. I thought I was the successful one, she said quietly. I thought I was the one who had it all figured out. You are successful, Victoria. Junior partner at 31 is impressive. But not $5 billion successful. Is that what matters to you? The number? She didn't answer, just took a long drink of her champagne. More family members were approaching now, drawn by the commotion. I could see the questions forming, the congratulations and the confusion and the sudden, desperate interest in what I did. My phone buzzed again. Another text from David. CNBC wants an exclusive interview tomorrow morning. I looked at my family, at my parents who'd doubted me, my sister who'd dismissed me, the extended relatives who'd pitied me. They were all watching me now, with new eyes, recalculating, reassessing. Part of me wanted to be gracious, to accept their belated support and move forward. Part of me wanted to tell them exactly how their condescension had felt, how many nights I'd spent proving them wrong. Instead I said, I need to go. I have calls to make, prep work for the media blitz tomorrow. But the party isn't over, Mom protested. I know. Tell Dad congratulations again on his retirement. I'm proud of him. I meant it, too. 40 years in one career was an achievement. Just because he hadn't understood mine didn't diminish his. I hugged them each briefly. Mom, Dad, Victoria. They all felt stiff in my arms, uncertain. Maya, Dad said as I pulled away, I'm sorry. For not taking you seriously. For not seeing what you were building. I looked at him, at the genuine regret in his eyes. I know, Dad. Thank you. Can we talk more about this? Soon? Maybe. I need some time to process everything. I made my way toward the exit, stopped every few feet by relatives wanting to shake my hand, offer congratulations, ask questions. I kept my responses brief, polite, non-committal. Near the door, I ran into Aunt Carol. She grabbed my arm, her grip tight. Maya, I just want to say I always knew you were special. I always told your mother you were going to do something amazing. I smiled, extracting my arm gently. Thank you, Aunt Carol. I didn't remind her that she'd asked me just 2 hours ago when I was going to get a real job. The night air hit me as I stepped outside, cool and clean after the warmth of the ballroom. I stood on the steps of the Fairmont, watching the traffic on Dartmouth Street, the lights of Boston stretching out in all directions. My phone rang. Sandra this time. I saw the coverage, she said without preamble. How are you holding up? I'm good. Just left my dad's retirement party. How'd that go? I laughed. About as well as you'd expect. They found out from the news. Ouch. Yeah. You know they're going to want back in now, right? Everyone who dismissed you is going to suddenly be very interested. I know. What are you going to do about it? I watched a couple walking down the street, hand in hand, completely absorbed in their own world. I haven't decided yet. Well, for what it's worth, you don't owe them anything. You built this yourself. I know that too. We talked for a few more minutes about logistics, the schedule for the next week, the media strategy, the investor calls. All the practical details that would consume my life for the foreseeable future. When we hung up, I stood there a moment longer, just breathing. Somewhere above me, in that ballroom, my family was probably still processing. Tomorrow, they'd call. They'd want to have lunch, to hear the whole story, to be part of my success. I could already imagine the conversations. Mom suggesting family photos for the Forbes profile. Dad offering business advice. Victoria wanting to introduce me to people in her network. They'd mean well. That was the hardest part. They genuinely believe they were being supportive. But something had shifted tonight. A line had been drawn, invisible but definite. There was before, when they'd thought I was wasting my potential, and after. When they'd learned the truth. I couldn't go back to before. And I wasn't sure I wanted to rush into after. My phone buzzed with a notification. Another news alert. Another analysis piece, another wave of attention. The story was spreading, growing, taking on a life of its own. By tomorrow morning, ClearPath AI would be everywhere. By Tuesday, we'd be public. By next week, the valuation might climb higher. And through it all, I'd still be the same person I was before the news broke. The same person who'd worked 18-hour days for 5 years. The same person who'd believed in an idea when no one else did. The same person who'd sat in that ballroom corner, invisible and dismissed. The difference was that now, everyone else knew it too. I pulled out my phone and ordered a car. While I waited, I typed out a text to David. Let's expand the PR team, and the engineering team, and the sales team. We're going to need them. His response came immediately. Already on it, boss. Get some rest. Big week ahead. I smiled at that. Rest. As if I'd sleep tonight with everything spinning through my mind. The car pulled up, and I slid into the back seat, giving the driver my address in Cambridge. As we pulled away from the Fairmont, I caught one last glimpse of the ballroom windows, glowing warmly in the night. My phone rang again. This time it was Victoria. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the decline button. Then I answered. Hey, Maya. Her voice was thick. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't say anything, just listened. You tried to tell us, she continued. All those times you tried to share what you were doing, and I made jokes. I was dismissive. I treated your work like it was less important than mine. Yeah, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know either, Victoria. Can we try? Please? I leaned my head back against the seat, watching the Boston streets slide past the window. Maybe. But not tonight. I need some space to process everything. Okay, I understand. A pause. For what it's worth, I am proud of you. Genuinely proud. What you've built is incredible. Thank you. I love you, Maya. I love you too. I hung up and closed my eyes, letting the exhaustion wash over me. Tomorrow would bring 1,000 new challenges, interviews and investor calls and strategic decisions. Tomorrow would bring my family wanting to reconnect, wanting to understand, wanting to be part of a success they'd never believed in. But tonight, I just sat in the quiet car, letting myself feel everything I'd been holding back for 5 years. The hurt of being dismissed. The frustration of not being heard. The lonely determination of proving myself day after day. And underneath it all, a deep satisfaction. Not because I'd proven them wrong, that had never been the point. But because I'd proven myself right. Because I'd trusted my vision when no one else did. Because I'd built something meaningful and lasting and real. The car pulled up to my apartment building in Cambridge. I thanked the driver and headed inside, my heels clicking on the marble lobby floor. Tomorrow, the world would know Maya Reeves, CEO of ClearPath AI. Tomorrow, I'd step into the spotlight I'd never sought but had earned nonetheless. But tonight, I was still just me. The girl who'd sat in the shadows while her sister shined. The daughter who'd been underestimated. The entrepreneur who'd worked in obscurity while everyone around her offered unsolicited advice. And tomorrow, when the press asked how it felt to go from unknown to billionaire overnight, I'd tell them the truth. I'd never been unknown. People just hadn't been paying attention. I unlocked my apartment and stepped inside, finally allowing myself to smile. The validation wasn't in their sudden recognition. It was in knowing I hadn't needed it to succeed.